Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. Well, today I want to do a bit of a follow-up to a video I did last week about the Industrial Revolution, the next wave of innovation that blockchains and open source projects may bring about. And that's because the guys over at Kanya, who we've had on the channel a couple of times, are running a competition to talk about the gig economy, the freelance economy, sector that they're trying to disrupt within the blockchain space. So I'm going to go off the cuff today and talk about the way that crypto and their DApp is changing the gig economy and the workforce. So it's a pretty modern innovation, although it has already grown to 2 trillion worth of economic activity. And it's a way to reward workers directly, or content creators, and definitely fund ideas that may not have previously been funded, because who do you go to? VCs, venture capital guys, or banks, and they often won't fund ideas because it may even be in competition with something they already have. They've got a monopoly, or they might even buy out the idea or just simply copy it because you're such a small fish, and they say, well, fight me, sue me, you can't afford the lawyers. And it's funny that some of the best ideas throughout history have come from entrepreneurs and startups and high school dropouts, rather than necessarily through the system or from the richest folk. And we see this exact phenomenon now, where Apple and Google are sitting on hundreds of billions of dollars of cash, but they haven't really had any groundbreaking ideas. A lot of people would argue since the iPhone. They bring out a new model every year or two, but they haven't really sprung up the best ideas. All the really good startups out there are coming from these garages and individual entrepreneurs, that spirit that they have, rather than once you get to the top and start making money and get rather corporate. It's interesting that you have that problem of too much money and not enough good ideas. So I think this is certainly one way where we can go straight to the people with good ideas through the gig economy. Now, for the first time, we have this online virtual world of sorts, where you may not have ever met the person that you're engaging to do work with, but they're very much existing in the real world and taking out those tasks. So we've got this open global talent pool, and this is really leveling the playing field, particularly for countries like Australia, which have really high wages and where we've outsourced all that cheap labor to other countries. So I've pictured this as a water level where it's going to equal out in the middle somewhere, because people aren't going to keep paying that architect $100 an hour in Sydney if they can pay one $20 an hour in India, and they're doing just as good a work. And it's a lot easier to find jobs from that global talent pool once we have these peer-to-peer dApps and systems in place, which I'm going to talk about. So this isn't for everyone. That's the next thing to talk about. You do forego a lot of your benefits and rights, depending on what country you're in, health insurance, superannuation, all that sort of thing. So there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of stress. Some people love that lifestyle where they feel like they have more freedom and they're their own boss. Other people don't want that at all. They want job security. Low-skilled workers is an interesting one. As more and more people download these dApps and can become familiar with it, and it's very easy to onboard and become an Uber driver, for example, it puts a lot of pressure on those low-skilled workers. And what we're seeing now is that some people are fighting these unions, saying they're actually making less money than minimum wage because there's so much competition for jobs. There's so many drivers with that Uber, for example. So this is going to be a completely different kettle of fish once we have people with specialties on these task apps and can build reputation, high skilled workers as well. As I said, this is an entire talent pool that is just starting to get topped up now, but it's probably those low skilled workers where a lot of the jobs are currently at. So I spoke about people thinking Uber's a disruptor when it changes the current taxi model, and people think that Airbnbs have disrupted the hotel model. Well, in some ways they definitely have, but still not peer-to-peer. There's still an intermediary, a man in the middle, charging fees, trying to run their business. And the next step is really removing that and these peer-to-peer blockchain-based apps such as Kanya, and making the software the middleman. And what that allows for is far lower costs, which we're going to talk about. The next thing is the payment between individuals for the task, foregoing banks by using cryptocurrency. They're not storing and on-selling all your personal data, as well as I mentioned, the fees can be as high as 20% for something like Airtasker, TaskRabbit, and Kanya's down in the, I think it's 1% or even 0.5%. So really dropping that margin. The employee gets a lot more. Everyone's happy. The software is becoming the middleman. So this really has the power to empower individuals. Once we see a lot more jobs posted, there's a lot of engagement. You can build reputation and trust, collaborate with individuals you otherwise wouldn't have been able to. And I think this is already sort of changing the way the economy works. We're becoming international online citizens of sorts, where you can really do any job from anywhere in the world now. And what that is going to do is put pressure on countries with higher tax rates. We're already seeing people move to another jurisdiction. If they can work from anywhere online, as long as you have a decent internet connection, why are you going to work somewhere that makes you pay 50 cents on the dollar tax rates if you can pay 0 or 10% and live in a friendly country, pick your climate, all that sort of thing as well. So I think in a lot of ways this is going to hurt the countries that have become a little bit entitled, as I said before, and service sector focused, where we're outsourcing all the good manufacturing jobs and other things to other countries that have lower wages. So it's going to come back to bite a lot of countries that have become lazy, but it's going to reward those individuals that are creative and good workers. And that's one thing that I certainly think is something to look forward to if you're a smart guy out there, smart girl, looking to further your way with your ideas rather than your current avenues, particularly in countries like Australia, where there's not a lot of VC capital going out there to be a startup or an entrepreneur. So let me know your thoughts below. Are you familiar with Kanya and what they're trying to do? What do you think about the gig economy? Looking forward to reading your comments. But hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, share these videos around, and thanks for tuning in, guys. Cheers.